bravery and sacrifice. Canadians across the country mark Remembrance Day. More on the ceremonies here at home coming up.
And we now have confirmation a tornado did, in fact, touch down in Ontario last night. We're going to take you to Fergus to show you the aftermath of that powerful storm.
And the Grey Cup is on the line when the Argos take on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in Vancouver next week. Can they do it without their star quarterback? We'll have a preview coming up.
And the countdown is officially on. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour hits Toronto this week. We're going to have a preview. Stick around.
This is Live at 5. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lena Latifat.
I'm Bakari Savage. Remembrance Day ceremonies were held across the country today, including outside Old City Hall this morning.
People gathered at the cenotaph where wreaths were laid to honor soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice. The final wreath presented commemorates 10 years since the end of the Canadian mission in Afghanistan. It was carried by Valerie McGrady, the mother of Corporal Matthew McCulley, who was born in Toronto and killed in Afghanistan. Mayor Olivia Chow was at that ceremony where she later spoke. Take a listen to that tonight.
For over a century, the people of Toronto have come together at Old City Hall to pay tribute to the brave men and women who served and those who gave their lives in service to Canada. Today, we honor not just their memory, but their families, loved ones, and communities that carried their legacy forward.
And for more on Toronto marking Remembrance Day, we go live to CP24's Beatrice Vaisman at Old City Hall. Beatrice.
Bakari, Lena, it was quite an emotional ceremony, barely a dry eye as that mum who lost her son in Afghanistan came and laid her wreath at the foot of the cenotaph. You could hear a pin drop during the last post. Really just quite moving to see this sense of unity in grief, unity in pride to serve this country, and unity and commitment to never forget. And for the veterans who I spoke to today, most of whom from the modern conflicts like Afghanistan, Bosnia, Yugoslavia, they're thinking about their fellow men and women in uniform who did not return home to their families. And here's a bit of some of my conversations with these vets.
When you put on the uniform every day, you feel pride that you get to serve Canada and Canadians. And when you go overseas serving Canada and Canadians, it's an incredible feeling.
Remembrance Day to me is also to remember those who I also work with, to contribute to the cause that we all wanted to make the world a better place and Canada a better place.
People take something from everyone that they knew, and lots of those guys were the best and the brightest of the Canadians, and so being able to kind of carry on their legacy, to learn from them, to be a better person from having known them is important to me. And I think it's the same for the next generation.
And so we watched as after the conclusion of the ceremony, people came and laid poppies at the foot of the cenotaph as well in honor of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. And when you hear from some of these veterans and current active military members like the Lieutenant Colonel, that first voice you heard from there in that clip, I asked him, do you feel the weight of the country on your shoulders when you're serving this country abroad? He served in Afghanistan, recently was overseas participating in Canada's mission when it comes to the war in Ukraine, and he simply said, no, you don't feel the weight of the country and the nation. You feel the weight of the loss in losing your friends, people that you went to battle, to combat with, who did not come home to their spouses, to their children. And so that's really what today is all about. For others, it's about honoring their parents, their grandparents, their ancestors who served in Canada's military. I met one of those men here as well, who every year honors his father, brings his dad's picture here. His dad served in the Canadian Navy, and he does it as just simply as a token of remembrance to keep dad's memory alive. And so here's a bit of my conversation with him.
I think he's still here, right? Because I put his pictures out, and when he's sitting out here, You know, even in a picture, it's like he's here. He's here looking around, right, watching everything, right? So, you know, I even at my house I put his pictures in my window, right? Because for me, it's like he's still here and he's still looking outside, because he always liked looking out the window.
And speaking of window, today really gave us just that, a window into the lives of people whose parents fought in the wars, grandparents, people whose loved ones made the ultimate sacrifices. And so today is all about honoring them, remembering them, and actually vowing never to forget their honor, their legacy, and the way they've served this country. Back to you.
Okay, outside of Old City Hall, CP24's Beatrice Vaisman. Thank you.
Well, Remembrance Day ceremonies were also held at Queen's Park and in Ottawa today.
For more, let's bring in CP24's Andrew Brennan. Andrew.
Well, Bakari, Lena, a lot of what we heard today at Queen's Park, and we'll go to Ottawa afterwards, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. But first, on the grounds of the legislature, having the Premier and also the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, Edith Simon, they were addressing the crowd. And some of the messages that Beatrice was just mentioning, hearkening back to the times where war was something that was in the collective memory of generations. And as time moves on, and we don't have that immediate memory, there was a pause from some in the crowd as we heard the Premier saying to never forget. Now, you'll hear more here from the Lieutenant Governor, Edith Simon.
Today, here in Toronto and throughout Ontario, we gather to honor, service, and sacrifice. We do so in a year that marks important anniversaries. Among them, the 110th anniversary of the beginning of the Great War and of Canada's involvement, the 80th anniversary of D-Day and the Normandy campaign, and more recently, the 10th anniversary of Canada's withdrawal of Afghanistan.
And let's head now to the nation's capital, to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, representative of thousands and thousands of sons who died in the fields of northern and eastern France, and emblematic of the sons that were lost by so many. We heard today, for instance, from this year's Silver Cross mother, Maureen Anderson, she among many laying a wreath at the memorial. She was there on behalf of her sons, Ron and Ryan. They both served several tours overseas, but they came back changed and died 3 years apart. And they were suffering from PTSD following their sacrifices for the sake of our collective freedom. Now, like at Old City Hall today, here in Toronto, at the memorial in Ottawa, as is tradition, poppies were laid by those that attended, and by the end of the day, there was barely any room on the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Back to you both.
Okay, CP24's Andrew Brennan live in studio. Andrew, thank you for that recap.
Well, Premier Doug Ford met with veterans and shook hands of military members at the Sunnybrook Veterans Center this morning.
The Premier planted 2 small Canadian flags in the ground before going inside to meet with those who served our country.
Well, I want to thank them. I want to thank them for their service, and the stories are incredible, how they sacrificed, and some the ultimate sacrifice to protect our freedoms and our democracies. And we can never, ever forget and make sure our kids are educated about the sacrifices, and the reason why we have a free country today is because of their sacrifices.
And a sunrise service honoring veterans was held at Prospect Cemetery this morning. Members of the Royal Canadian Legion, Mayor Olivia Chow, Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles, and other dignitaries gathered at the Veterans Plot. This is the 96th annual Remembrance Day sunrise service. As part of the ceremony, a new Canadian flag was raised up The flagpole and wreaths were laid in remembrance. Reverend Nelson Dundas spoke at the service.
So grant us to live that we may remember forward to a world restored, that those who come after us might enjoy what we assumed would always be there. Help us to be co-creators with you, O God, that all life might flourish and prosper.
And students and staff at schools across Toronto also took time to mark Remembrance Day this morning.
It was it was nice to know and hear about what has happened, and just so that you have a feeling that oh, you know what happened to all those soldiers that sacrificed their lives to make Canada a free country, but at the same time it's a bit heartbreaking to know what happened to them.
North York's Claude Watson School for the Arts held a special assembly to honor Canada's veterans. 300 students took part in the event. It included a concert band, drama skit, and a presentation on the contributions Chinese Canadians made during the Second World War.
It's now 5:11, 10 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
And coming up, a man has serious injuries after being stabbed at a park near Bay and Dundas.
Ontario's Court of Appeal says it will not review the decision to deny Peter Nygard bail while he appeals his sex assault convictions.
The court says that the judge who dismissed the former fashion mogul's bail application made no arguable errors. Nygard's lawyers claim that the judge failed to appreciate the arrangement Nygard proposed for his release. The judge ruled Nygard posed a flight risk as he faces charges in other jurisdictions. The 83-year-old was found guilty of 4 counts of sexual assault last year and sentenced to a little less than 7 years in prison after credit for time spent in custody. Well, a man was sent to hospital after a stabbing in a downtown park during the noon hour.
Police say the victim in his 40s was found in a park near Bay and Dundas. His injuries are described as serious. No suspect information has been released.
And police are also investigating after a man was stabbed overnight near Dufferin and Eglinton. This happened during an altercation. Police haven't said if an arrest has been made.
And police are reporting the seizure of 3 firearms earlier this month as a result of officers on patrol investigating a suspicious vehicle and also spotting 2 stolen vehicles. The 3 investigations happened during the first weekend of this month in the Jane and Finch and Jane and Driftwood areas. A total of 5 men and 2 young people are facing charges. One of the stolen vehicles recovered was a Rolls Royce. Well, no one was injured after 2 buildings collapsed in downtown Hamilton this morning.
Police were called to King Street near Gore Park. This was around 6 o'clock this morning. They found the building reduced to a pile of rubble, which you see right there. The collapse also damaged a neighboring building that was evacuated. The Hamilton Fire Chief confirmed that the heritage buildings had been boarded up for some time and slated for demolition. The cause? That's not yet known, but a local councillor tweeted it was due to neglect on the part of the owners.
Well, confirmation today that a rare November tornado touched down near Fergus last night.
The CP24's Kayla Williams joins us live with more of the powerful line of storms that swept through the area last night. Kayla.
Yeah, that's right. And hearing from the Northern Tornadoes Project, Bakari and Lena, they are now calling this an EF0. So when it comes to this scale, as far as the damage goes, definitely falling on the less severe side, but still a rare occurrence nonetheless. This happening in Fergus, Ontario. Rain coming down hard last night around the 10 o'clock hour in the Waterloo region, Guelph, Wellington County as well. And so now this morning we were able to sort of see the damage, the substantial damage from what we now know is an EF0 tornado. We heard from people whose homes were damaged, broken tree lines as well as electrical tree lines as well. And they spoke to our crews there that were on the scene, just kind of walking us through what they heard and saw in the thick of it yesterday. And we also heard from David Sills, who's the executive director of Northern Tornadoes Project, and he walked us through what constitutes as a tornado and what are some of the things that his team looks for when labeling it as such. Take a listen.
We were sitting watching TV and all of a sudden you could hear the thunder and And then the wind just picked up, and it was probably the strongest wind I've ever seen in my life, and it just whipped right through.
What are we seeing here behind snapping with the tree in the house?
So this tree came down last night. It must have just snapped off right at the base here, and then it just was resting on the house, so we're just trying to get it off the house and kind of clean everything up.
The team arrived on the scene knowing that there was damage that had been reported the night before. So it was just a matter of, is it a long, narrow path of damage? That's what we're looking for with the tornado, and certainly in this case it was. The damage path is at least 6 kilometers long and probably only a few hundred meters wide. We're still trying to determine that. And as far as the intensity of the damage, preliminary EF0, meaning between 90 and 130 kilometers per hour, and we'll see if we find any evidence that could bring that up to the next category, F1.
Yeah, so Bakari and Lena, when it comes to how often this takes place, a tornado in our region or in the province, not that often, but as far as 2024 goes, the first one taking place in March of this year, which is relatively early, and then now we're having one happening in November, which is of course late, considering tornado season typically lasts around from June to August. So again, an EF0 touching down in Fergus, Ontario. Thankfully, no injuries were reported. We'll send it back over to you.
All right, Kayla Williams reporting live in studio tonight. Kayla, thanks so much for this. It's now 5:17, 7 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Canada's making changes to visitor visa policies. More on this next. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump says that Tom Homan will serve as border czar in his upcoming administration.
The former U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director was widely expected to be offered a position related to the border. Trump has pledged to launch the largest deportation operation in that country's history. Homan's role does not require Senate confirmation.
And Trump's plans when he moves back into the White House in January include rolling back Biden administration policies on education. He's also promising to reshape the government by firing federal workers he believes are secretly working against him. Trump also wants to pardon those arrested for their role in the Capitol riot January 6, 2021.
Well, the federal government is making changes to its visitor visa policies.
Visitors to Canada could be granted multiple entry visas for up to 10 years under the old regime. And the documents allowed them to enter and exit the country freely during that period. However, the new rules effectively end the automatic issuing of those visas. They will see applicants assessed on an individual basis to determine whether they will receive a single or multiple entry visa, as well as the length of time it will be valid for.
5:21, 7 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
The city's getting ready for Taylor Swift. We're going to have more on what you need to know ahead of the Superstars string of concerts set to start this week. Well, this is the week that Taylor Swift finally lands in Toronto with her Eras Tour.
Yeah, Swifties have been waiting a long time for this moment. And for more on all the excitement, let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan outside Rogers Centre. Rogers Centre looks a little different tonight, Melissa.
Oh yeah, Lena, we have got a new selfie hotspot in Toronto. I'm on the south side of the Rogers Centre, and that's where you will find this, a giant inflatable friendship bracelet. Of course, friendship bracelets are big at Taylor Swift shows. Fans hand them out to each other, and this is the place to be if you are a Swiftie fan over the next little while. So we know that her first concert in Toronto is going to be when? On Thursday. But tomorrow is when you could get a piece of the excitement, because that is when merchandise will be up for grabs. And get this, you don't have to have a ticket to the shows to be able to access these stores inside the Rogers Centre to pick up a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, maybe a friendship bracelet as well. 3 different gates are going to be open for that experience to be able to pick up merchandise for anyone on days when there aren't concerts. And again, that's going to be starting tomorrow. But already people are getting that Taylor Swift fever. I was just talking to a mother and daughter duo who are going to be seeing the show together. And here's some of their excitement. Have a listen.
I'm really excited for when she plays Mastermind, probably. And like the whole Midnights era is probably like my favorite.
And have you been watching videos online getting ready for this?
Oh yeah. We've been preparing.
I'm hoping she releases Reputation, Taylor's version, in Toronto. I'm just excited to go with her. Yeah. And we're getting all dressed up, which we're really excited for. Oh, so yeah, we're just happy to be there. This is really exciting. It's cool to see Toronto. Apparently this made it from the States. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it moved around. So yeah, we're pumped.
What a nice mother-daughter duo there. By the way, they were telling me that they actually won tickets to the show in a raffle, so they are extra excited. They said they put this on their vision board. They made it happen. So about that merchandise, by the way, if you want to start picking it up tomorrow, stores here open at 10 a.m., but they're only allowing lineups beginning at 9 a.m. So something to keep in mind as everyone gets all excited for Taylor Swift. Back to you guys inside.
Yeah, I'm sure those lineups are going to be incredibly long. Melissa Duggan reporting live on Taylor Swift coming to Toronto. We'll check in soon, Melissa. Thanks so much.
All right, switching things up. The Argos are going to be playing for the Grey Cup in Vancouver next Sunday, but they're going to be without quarterback Chad Kelly.
And for a look ahead to the CFL Final, let's bring in CP24's Phil Perkins. Phil.
Hey there, Lena Bakari. I will say, we were talking about Taylor Swift previously. I'm gonna tie Taylor Swift to this Grey Cup. I'll tell you how. But first, let's talk about the Toronto Argonauts, who just kind of made their way to the Grey Cup by destroying the Ottawa Redblacks, almost putting a 60 burger on them in the semi in the first round of the CFL playoffs, and then edged the reigning champ Montreal Alouettes in the Eastern Final to punch their ticket to the Grey Cup. And they have a perfect record in the Grey Cup. The last 7 times the Argonauts have been to the Grey Cup, they've won it. And they're up against a Winnipeg Blue Bombers team who have been absolutely stellar in these regular season and the postseason, and they're going to have to do it without Chad Kelly. Broke his leg in the last game. Nick Arbuckle is going to be putting himself in a huge situation, unfamiliar situation, starting in the Grey Cup there. Here is 3 Down Nation's Justin Dunk about their opponent, the Blue Bombers.
The Bombers are a juggernaut right now. You look at what they did in that West Final, Phil. They absolutely took apart the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who some might argue had the best defense in the Canadian Football League. Zach Collaros threw for over 400 yards in that game. Brady Oliveira, who is the West Division nominee for the CFL's Most Outstanding Player Award, the equivalent in any other pro sports league to the MVP of the league. Oliveira is going to win it, I would imagine, in a landslide. And Kenny Lawler went off in that game. 4 catches, 177 yards, 3 of them going for touchdowns. Plus, this secondary that the Blue Bombers have is the best in the league.
All right, here's the tie. Zach Collaros went to the University of Cincinnati. You know who he played with? Travis Kelce, who is also Taylor Swift's boyfriend. He actually wore Zach Collaros' jersey during his New Heights podcast a couple days ago. So that's a tie. That's all you got to say.
That's almost like the, what is it, 6 Degrees of Bacon?
Yeah, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Absolutely. Yeah, 6 Degrees of Collaros and Taylor Swift. It's all connected.
Okay. Oh, wow. Look at that. All right.
All right.
That's it.
CP24's Phil Perkins with that little tidbit right there. It's
Nice job,
5:28,
Phil.
7 degrees. This is Live at 5.
A rare November tornado touched down near Fergus during a powerful storm that swept through the area last night, snapping trees and knocking out power. Stay with us for more on this.
Honoring bravery and sacrifice, Canadians across the country mark Remembrance Day. More on the ceremonies here at home coming up.
And we now have confirmation a tornado did in fact touch down in Ontario last night. We're going to take you to Fergus to show you the aftermath of that powerful storm.
And the countdown is officially on. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour hits Toronto this week. We have a preview coming up.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening. I'm Bakari Saab.
And I'm Lena Latifat. Thank you for joining us here on Live at 5. Remembrance Day ceremonies were held across the country today, including outside Old City Hall this morning.
People gathered at the cenotaph where wreaths were laid to honor soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice. The final wreath presented commemorates 10 years since the end of the Canadian mission in Afghanistan. It was carried by Valerie McGrady, the mother of Corporal Matthew McCulley, who was born in Toronto but killed in Afghanistan. Mayor Olivia Chow spoke at the ceremony.
To the men and women in uniform standing among us today, we offer our deepest thanks for your commitment. And we pledge to honor our commitment to take care of those who came home.
And for more on Toronto marking Remembrance Day, we're live to CP24's Beatrice Faisman at Old City Hall. Beatrice.
Lena, you spend time with some of these veterans, both retired and still serving in the Canadian Armed Forces. And you really, I was really struck by almost the matter of factness with which they serve this country, with pride, yes, with, intention to uphold our values and our freedoms, but with simply feeling as though it was their calling to don this uniform, to wear it, to proudly wear the Canadian flag, especially for those who served overseas. I met many veterans today who did multiple tours in Afghanistan, some serving in Bosnia and Yugoslavia, others part of Canada's mission overseas in the midst of this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And all of them essentially share the same why, their reason for doing it. And it's because they wanted to be helpers, they tell me, because they wanted to represent this nation, because they wanted to uphold our values and our freedoms. And so today, Torontonians came out in droves to pay honor and tributes to these veterans and current members of the Canadian Armed Forces, to give their thanks, to promise to never to forget, and also to listen to some of their stories. And the conclusion, people laid down poppies at the foot of the cenotaph in honor of every single man and woman who lost their lives and paid the ultimate sacrifice. And so I had a chance to speak with a pair of vets who you're about to hear from. The first one, retired Sergeant June Paris, who was here to lay a wreath on behalf of No. 2 Construction, the only Black and largest all-Black Canadian unit to serve. And secondly, you'll hear from still first warrant officer who is 38 years into his service for this country, his shoulder almost ripped off by shrapnel in Afghanistan in 2010, and still he is proudly donning the Canadian flag and serving this country. And so here's more from my conversations with them.
That battalion was the battalion that my grandfather served with. It was an all-Black battalion that went overseas. They went overseas, and there's a long story with it, but anyway, they went overseas, and they ended up being laborers over there, and which wasn't, they didn't think that they went over to fight, but they didn't get to actually fight with weapons. They used, picks and shovels to build trenches and bridges and things like that.
I carried on Remembrance Day just to tell the story, to show what it's all about. It's about great Canadians who lay down their life for their friend. And I would say that everyone is their friend. Your community members are your friend. Your soldier beside you is your friend, and this country is their friend, and that's why they do it. We serve, and it's an honor to serve.
And barely a dry eye here in front of Old City Hall when that mom who lost her son walked up to the cenotaph and laid a wreath on behalf of her son who died in Afghanistan. And so for the veterans that I spoke to, many of them think of just those people, their men and women, their comrades with whom they served, who did not come home to their families, to their loved ones, did not live to see their children grow up. And so that's their reason for marking this Remembrance Day, as Torontonians have done in front of Old City Hall every year since November 11th, 1920. Back to you.
Honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Beatrice Faisman reporting live tonight. Beatrice, thanks so much for your coverage. And Remembrance Day ceremonies were also held at Queen's Park and in Ottawa.
And for this recap, we turn to CP24's Andrew Brennan, who joins us live in studio. Andrew.
Good evening, guys. And let's turn first to the Ontario legislature. On the grounds of Queen's Park today, there were dignitaries and dozens upon dozens of other people that wanted to remember not just the ultimate sacrifices made, but the many veterans that call this country home, that came home to live after serving and dealing still, many of them, with the scars of war. One of the people that spoke today, the Honorary Lieutenant General for the ceremony, but also one who's held that title before in Ontario, is Richard Romer. Now, he was a Major General. He also served during the Second World War. He was a part of D-Day. And earlier on, we were able to hear a little bit of his wisdom as we mark once again November the 11th.
I want to say very simply that I adopt the wonderful words of the Premier, and I did in fact have a major chairmanship of the ongoing committee over 20 years that put this wall together. In fact, I have an accomplishment which is the ingraining of my Mustang fighter on D-Day somewhere in the wall here. A challenge that was given to me at one point saying, "You can't do that." And I said, "Oh, really? Watch me."
And in our nation's capital today, we had once again a ceremony at the Memorial to the Unknown Soldier. That dates back to the First World War, where we first got Remembrance Day. And as you can see, so many that were in attendance, like at Old City Hall in Toronto. Not many dry eyes in that house either. Now, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is representative of so many sons that never made it home from what was at the time the Great War. Little did they know there would be an even greater war on the horizon. But it's become representative of the many upon many soldiers who have made the sacrifice for our country. And today, one of the last things that was awarded was the Silver Cross Mother, awarded to Maureen Anderson. She lost 2 of her sons after they finished their tours, many tours, both of them in Afghanistan. Ron and Ryan dying within 3 years of each other after returning home. A reminder, it's not just about the time served there. And you can see right now is another wreath being laid. We saw Prime Minister among many doing so today. But it's also, as I was saying, about those that did come back and what they have to live with to this day as wars continue. Back to you both.
All right, Andrew Brennan reporting live. Thank you, Andrew. And students and staff at schools across Toronto also took time to mark Remembrance Day this morning.
It was it was nice to know and hear about what has happened, and just so that you have a feeling that oh, you know what happened to all those soldiers that sacrificed their lives to make Canada a free country, but at the same time it's a bit heartbreaking to know what happened to them.
North York's Claude Watson School for the Arts held a special assembly to honor Canada's veterans. 300 students took part in the event, which included a concert band, drama skit, and a presentation of the contributions Chinese Canadians made during the Second World War.
It's now 5:47 degrees. This is Live at 5.
A rare November tornado touched down near Fergus last night. A closer look at this next.
Welcome back. Confirmation today that a rare November tornado did in fact touch down near Fergus.
CP24's Kayla Williams joins us live with more of the powerful line of storms that swept through last night. Kayla.
Yeah, that's right. And we're talking about Fergus, Ontario. So this is closer to the Wellington, Guelph, as well as Waterloo region, all getting a tornado warning late last night, dealing with the heavy rainfall and the strong winds. And really the timing of this is what made this, or added to the fact that this was such a rare occurrence with this tornado. Now we know it's an EF0 touching down late last night, and now in the morning when we were able to sort of see the damage, it was quite interesting to just see and to know that a tornado did in fact touch down in Fergus. Some residents living in the area of Wellington County reporting localized damage, including downed tree lines. And we even had a chance to speak to a homeowner who had a tree completely knock down their roof, and he talked about how it happened so fast. Now, we also heard from David Sills, who's the executive director of Northern Tornadoes Project, who had a team on the ground in Fergus assessing the damage. And we talked to him about how they determine when a storm becomes an EF tornado. Here's more from that homeowner, I should say, Jay Price, as well as David Sills.
It was different. It was probably the weirdest thing I've been a part of in my life. And it was just kind of one of those things. It was almost surreal. Yeah, you were kind of like, you weren't sure what was happening.
When the tree came down, did you feel it? Did you hear it?
So I was in my son's bedroom, which is right there, and then he came into our room saying that it came down, but he didn't say anything about feeling it, I think he was just more taken aback by the whole situation.
It's these incursions of warm, moist air that give us the ingredients for tornadoes to set up. So it's been a really long tornado season, actually, because we had that first incursion of warm, moist air back in March. That was March 15th was the first tornado of the year. And then, now we're into the middle of November almost, and we're still seeing these incursions of warm, moist air. So as long as we get those ingredients setting up, we can get tornadoes. Most of our tornadoes occur, of course, in the summertime. June to August is the prime time right across Canada. But as in these shoulder seasons, if the ingredients come together, we can get a tornado.
Yeah, and as you just heard from David there, it pretty much was a recipe for disaster, in this case yesterday for Fergus, Ontario. So the last time we were talking about a tornado in southern Ontario was back in August in the area of Ayr, where they received an EF1, but it was then upgraded to an EF2 tornado. So again, not something that we're talking about in southern Ontario, recently, and definitely not in the month of November when we take a look in years past. So a pretty incredible thing that took place last night, Bakari and Lena, and thankfully no injuries were reported. We'll send it back over to you.
Okay, with the latest out of Fergus, CP24's Kayla Williams. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, a lockout is underway at the Port of Montreal after dock workers overwhelmingly rejected a deal from their employers.
QP says members voted 99.7% to reject what the Maritime Employers Association called its final comprehensive offer. A union advisor says that the offer was rejected because the employer refused to negotiate, adding nothing in the offer reflects the union's demands. The association said that in its own statement that it deplores the negative outcome of the vote and had no choice but to declare lockout. The Port of Montreal is the second biggest in Canada, moving close to $400 million in goods every day.
Meanwhile, the federal government is urging both sides in the dispute at the Port of Montreal, as well as at two ports in BC, to get back to the bargaining table. Labour Minister Stephen McKinnon's office issued statements about both the labour issues, stressing the urgency of the situation, adding that Canadians are counting on them. Container terminals across BC were locked by employers last week in what they call a defensive action after workers started strike activity.
Well, a plane trying to land at Port-au-Prince Airport in Haiti, it was shot at by gangs, leaving a flight attendant with minor injuries.
Yeah, the Spirit Airlines flights was safely diverted to Dominican Republic. Haiti's international airport shut down temporarily after the gunfire. The U.S. Embassy says there are gang-led efforts to block travel to and from Port-au-Prince, which may include armed violence and disruptions to roads, ports, and airports. Now, in other parts of Haiti's capital, firefights between gangs and police broke out.
It's 5:47, 7 degrees, feeling like one above zero. This is Live at 5.
The city is getting ready for Taylor Swift. We're going to have more on what you need to know ahead of the superstar's string of concerts set to start this week.
Welcome to the acoustic set.
Well, we've been talking about it for weeks, but it's almost here. Taylor Swift finally lands in Toronto with her Eras Tour this week.
And for more on all the excitement and friendship bracelets, let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan outside Rogers Center. Hey, Melissa.
Hey, Bakari, that's right. A big, giant, inflatable friendship bracelet behind me, welcoming Taylor Swift to Toronto, the Eras Tour, the big show, 6 of them all together, kicking off on Thursday. But the fun starts tomorrow when the merchandise is up for grabs here at Rogers Center. There are some stores where fans can come check it out, grab some t-shirts. You don't need tickets for the shows when you're stopping by on days when there aren't concerts. But I've been doing my research. I've been digging in deep here. If you go to the Rogers Center website, a whole lot of details are listed there for you, including some key information I just found out about friendship bracelets, because everybody brings them to the shows and they trade them. Well, according to the Rogers Center, all friendship bracelets must fit on your person. Metal or plastic carabiners, shower curtains, hooks, rings, and bags carrying additional friendship bracelets are not permitted. So you got to wear them all on your arm when you arrive here. I was catching up with some Swifties. They're sharing some of their excitement with us. Have a listen.
I think it's just going to bring everyone together, and I think we're just going to have the best 6 nights, and yeah, it's just going to be a huge community of Swifties.
I'm so excited. This has been 2 years in the making, and I cannot wait to go. This is going to be huge for Toronto.
And why is Taylor Swift so special to you?
I just think like the relatability of her lyrics. I feel like everyone can really like take a piece of her from the generations, and I grew up with her, and I feel like it's just such a like important thing to see, and she's just been so big over the last couple of years. It feels like she's a phenomenon.
So those 6 concerts expected to draw some 500,000 people to this city. If you are going to the concerts, by the way, I've been walking around Rogers Centre already. They have these metal barriers set up, fencing, just to give you an idea of the long lines you could expect when you come out here. Gates are going to be opening days of the concerts at 4:30 p.m. You could start lining up at 3:30 p.m. And by the way, Lena and Bakari, when it comes to the roof here at Rogers Centre, it will be closed for all 6 of those shows. Back to you.
And also, Melissa, I want to point out something that you mentioned, very important. All friendship bracelets have to actually fit on you. It's key information. Thanks a lot.
Yes, that's right. Not a bag of them, not on a big hook. Wear them.
Okay, good for Swifties to know.
5:53, 7 degrees. This is Live at 5.
A familiar face is leaving CP24 coming up after the break. We say goodbye to one of our own. Stay with us for that.
All right, today, Monday, November 11th, 2024. It's a bittersweet day here at 299 Queen Street West. We are saying goodbye to one of our own.
Yeah, after a better part of a decade here at CP24, we're going to have to get through this without crying, right?
Yeah.
Our Kayla Williams signing off for the final time today. This is your last day at CP24. Kayla, I've worked with you for all of those 8 years. It's been such a pleasure. You are so relatable. Your energy is infectious. And it's really the end of an era for you and for us here at CP24. Yeah. It's got to feel surreal.
It does. It feels surreal right now, even having this conversation. We're going to get through this without crying, guys,
yes,
okay? We are going to do
but
that.
It's okay to cry.
It is okay to cry. Wow, how do you summarize 8 years in like 2 minutes? The opportunity to be a voice for my community, for the city of Toronto, for little girls who look like me, who have stopped me in the street, who have said that they just enjoy watching me on their screens, the grandmas, the aunties, everyone who has been so supportive, so loving all of these years. I cannot thank you from the bottom of my heart enough. So thank you. Thank you for welcoming me into your homes. Thank you for trusting me to share your stories. And I hope you sense just how much I love and appreciate this job. And it's bittersweet to say goodbye, to say farewell. But I hope that they'll, continue to watch along on this journey that I have, moving forward. As I close one chapter, they say you close one door, another one opens.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And speaking of journey, Kayla, you've been here for 8 years, but our history goes back even
I want to hear
further.
more about this.
So we started off in the States, Monroe, Louisiana.
Good
oh my God.
Louisiana. Who would have
Small
thought?
town.
From Louisiana to
and
Toronto.
we ended up here working together. There, the mayor told you to get the H out of his office.
Why are you telling my business like that?
Because that's part of the journey. That's where we've come from. And that's a part of the testament to who you are. As a person, you started off as a young woman, and now you are a mother. It's little Kennedy.
Yeah.
And look at the example that you're setting.
It's incredible. When I thought about, the 8 years, you guys have watched me grow up. I came here in 2016, and there's been so many life experiences that have happened, as you noted, becoming a mom and watching and just being in that journey. But even just looking back at some of the things that I've been able to
tell
cover.
us about the highlights. Like, what are some of the stories that stand out?
Amazing. And I mean, of course, naturally, we look back at that championship run of the Toronto Raptors.
You were so good, by the way.
Thank you. And just being in the thick of it, because it's just something that I love, being a natural sports fan. And again, I'm just a kid from Scarborough. I'm a girl from Scarborough. And, this amazing journey has been incredible. And when I say that I am truly blessed that I've been able to call this place my work home, and also just a part of my life, I'm going to look back on this with so much.
Okay.
With that, Kayla, we're going to let you say goodbye to everyone right here.
Yes.
This is it. Last 10 seconds.
All right.
10 seconds.
Everyone, thank you so much. It has been an honor to be a voice for you, and I love you. Signing off. Thank you for watching. CTV News at 6 is next.